This is NBC Nightly News, Monday, October 15th. Reported by John Chancellor.
Good evening. The war in the Middle East widened dangerously today to involve both the United States and the Soviet Union. The United States disclosed that it has already started to airlift military equipment to Israel to make up for Israeli battle losses and to offset massive Soviet military help to Egypt and Syria. In Moscow, the Soviet Union, which began resupplying the Arabs at least a week ago, said it is determined to assist in every way the Arab war to drive Israel out of the occupied Arab lands. And tonight, we learned from NBC News correspondent John Cochran that Pentagon sources say American pilots are flying both planes and other equipment directly into Israel.
American pilots are flying fighter planes into Israel for Israeli pilots to use in combat. Also, Americans are flying cargo planes loaded with missiles, ammunition, electronic gear, and even tanks. Government officials do not believe U.S. pilots are in great jeopardy. The officials point out that Israel controls the skies in the area over the Mediterranean close to Israel. But when asked what happens if an American military pilot is shot down, a high U.S. official said, well, the crisis just escalates. Government sources say ships from the U.S. 6th Fleet are prepared for air-sea rescue efforts should any American be shot down at sea. The U.S. is also supplying Israel in other ways. Today, at the Naval Air Base near Norfolk, an unmarked Israeli ship was loaded with 4 fighter planes and some 250-pound bombs. The planes were A-4 Skyhawks. These are the planes that Israel has lost the most of. The U.S. is also supplying the faster, more deadly F-4 Phantom jets. Government sources say eventually the U.S. should be able to replace most, if not all, of the Phantom jets so far lost by Israel. John Cochran, NBC News, Washington.
State Department spokesman Robert McCloskey said he was not going to indulge in name-calling and talking about the Soviet airlift. But the Nixon administration is angry at the Russians and has told them so privately. Officials here say the administration is still trying to avoid a public confrontation because that could set back the recent improvement in relations and might also interfere later with diplomatic efforts to work out a long-range Mideast settlement once the fighting is over. The State Department emphasized that the resupplying of Israel was designed to maintain the balance of power in the area, a diplomatic phrase which means Israeli military superiority, especially in the air. So there's no doubt that Israel is now getting some Phantom jets to replace its sizable losses. The decision to resupply was made after it became obvious that the Russians were increasing their resupply of the Arabs, including sending some technicians back to Syria. The State Department announcement is likely to provoke threats from some Arab states to cut off oil supplies to this country. But President Nixon made it clear at a White House ceremony for Medal of Honor winners that the United States would continue supporting Israel. And he did it by pointing out past examples of American help for Arab nations.
If I were to describe our policy, I would say that it is like the policy that we followed in 1958 when Lebanon was involved. It is like the policy we followed in 1970 when Jordan was involved. The policy of the United States in the Mideast, very simply stated, is this. We stand for the right of every nation in the Mideast to maintain its independence and security. We want this fighting to end. We want the fighting to end on a basis where we can build a lasting peace.
White House officials said afterward that the president did not mean to imply that the United States might send troops to the area, as it did to Lebanon in 1958. But for the first time during the war, the emphasis here is now on helping Israel militarily rather than diplomatically. Richard Valeriani, NBC News at the State Department.
The reason for the speed up in military deliveries, both by the United States and the Soviet Union, is that losses on both sides in the war have been sizable. According to authoritative sources, Israel has lost 1/4 of its air force, Syria half of its planes, Egypt 1/5. Israel has lost 1/3 of its tanks, Syria more than half, Egypt 1/10. In other news tonight, we'll have satellite reports on the fighting in the Middle East. Former Vice President Agnew is in the news tonight. We'll have a film report on a fire which destroyed 1/4 of a New England town. And we'll take note of increasing reports of strange, unexplained things going on up in the sky.
Stanley, I have an upset stomach and my headache. Stanley, I have an upset stomach and my headache. Stanley, I have an upset stomach and my headache.
When you have upset stomach with headache or body aches and pains, Alka-Seltzer has antacids and specially buffered aspirin for quick relief.
Stanley, did I have an upset stomach and did my headache? Stanley? Stanley?
Nice shoes.
Aren't they great? And they feel terrific. I walked all over Rome today and they still feel terrific.
Very nice shoes.
They're floor shines, and they're real leather, even inside. And guess what? I only paid $27.
Very nice shoes.
The Catini by Floorshine in all the right colors.
What may be a climactic battle for control of the Sinai Desert was shaping up today. Israel claimed that it beat off a massive Egyptian attack toward a pass leading to the Mediterranean Coast Highway. Egypt said a commando unit landed from the Mediterranean, apparently in connection with that drive, and then withdrew after accomplishing its objective. And the Israeli command said it expects Egypt to storm 2 other passes in the Sinai. If Egypt were to take the 3 passes, it would control most of the Sinai Desert roads and pose a grave threat to the entire Israeli effort in the Sinai Desert. We have a satellite report tonight from Robert Hager from the Egyptian side.
As the Egyptians advanced into the Sinai last week, they left untouched some pockets of Israeli resistors in hard-to-get-at bunkers along the east bank of the canal. Saturday, the last of the Israeli holdouts agreed to surrender. An Egyptian landing party came to pick up the Israelis under supervision of a Red Cross observer. The Egyptians were jubilant. There were 37 Israelis in this last group. They had been holed up in a maze of underground tunnels for 8 days. The Egyptian commander said he hadn't tried to force them out earlier because he would have lost too many men trying. The prisoners were taken across the canal. This one had both arms in splints and a bad neck wound. Nearly half the Israelis had been wounded. 5 more of their unit were killed, defending this last Israeli ground in the middle of the Egyptian beachhead. There were also Egyptian casualties, some of them civilian. The Egyptian village of Tok on the Nile Delta was one of those hit in a bombing raid. This was all that was left of a bus. There had been 30 people aboard. A cafe was also wrecked by the Israeli bombs. The people of Tok shouted slogans at visiting journalists, slogans of solidarity. And the hospital in a nearby village was filled with victims of the attack. The Egyptians claim 500 civilians have been killed in bombing raids on their side. The Israelis don't dispute the figure. Robert Hager, NBC News.
The Syrian front in the north now is a secondary theater of war, but the fighting there today was no less bitter than in the Sinai. The main elements of Israeli troops and armor appear to be stalled about 22 miles from Damascus. But in a second drive today, Israel said it sent tanks and men out of the central Golan Heights, where they defeated a second Iraqi brigade sent into the war. We have a report on the Syrian campaign from Liz Trotta.
Artillery shelling on both sides has been very heavy. On the Israeli side, there is an almost constant barrage from the artillery battery set up in what was once an Arab village. Israeli tank crews fighting there say they've destroyed much of the Arab armor. They will not talk about Israeli casualties. It is impossible to say exactly how much armor has been committed to this fight, but the number for each side is believed to be well into the hundreds. American-made Israeli fighter jets made a few passes over the Arab positions. But it was the small number of Israeli planes in the air that aroused speculation. Observers here theorized that a substantial portion of the Israeli air power had been moved from the northern campaign to the south, where the Egyptians are fighting for the Sinai. With the Israelis slowing down in Syria and the battle for Sinai heating up in the south, there is more and more talk here that the war will last longer than expected, possibly weeks longer. This seems to be what the Arabs are counting on to drain Israel of men and resources at any cost. This is Liz Papa, NBC News, with the Israeli forces in Syria.
Israeli casualties in the new war with the Arabs have been heavy for a country so small, not as high as the Arabs have claimed, but higher than in the Six-Day War. The Israeli military said 656 soldiers have been killed so far, including one girl soldier dead in the Sinai. Unofficial Israeli sources said 2,000 Israeli troops have been wounded. And today, Israeli Premier Golda Meir put aside official duties to visit a hospital for the wounded. David Burrington has that story.
Already, friends of hers have been killed in this war. The casualties are staggering. In 10 days of fighting, Israel has lost, in proportion to population, more soldiers than the United States lost in the entire Vietnam War. To avoid even higher casualties, Mrs. Meir has, from time to time, overruled her generals, according to a member of her staff. This visit with the wounded took time out of an incredibly busy schedule. Staff members say the Prime Minister is working 18 to 20 hours a day, that she lives on cigarettes and black coffee, that she's worn out everyone around her. She's 75 years old, and doctors say her stamina defies medical science. Aides say she's making all the tough decisions, that once she's made up her mind, that's it, the cabinet goes along. One of those decisions, according to a staff member, was that this time Israel must not attack first, whatever the price. David Burrington, NBC News, Tel Aviv.
Neither Egypt nor Syria has made public any figures on casualties, but they appear to be high. Nor are there casualty figures on the Arab countries which sent troops to fight in Syria, Iraq, about 18,000 soldiers, and Jordan, 3,000 men. In this country, the government said today it can get along without Arab oil for the time being. We import 6% of our oil from the Middle East, a little more than 1 million barrels a day. And the government said the United States could be independent of oil from the Arabs if people would drive more slowly and wash their clothing in cold water.
You are witnessing the creation of another ordinary salad. Lettuce, tomato, dressing. Now, Swiss Chalet announces new Salad Crispins, the cure for the common salad. A combination of 6 different products you may have added separately before. Now, all together in one shaker can. Improves any salad with any dressing. New Salad Crispins.
Stooping and bending. It's enough to give anyone a nagging backache, Alice.
Oh, is that what's bothering you this morning? Try Doan's pills.
Doan's?
They sure help me.
When nagging backache due to overexertion or everyday stress and strain comes on, Doan's pain-relieving action often brings temporary relief and lets you get a good night's sleep.
Backache better?
Woke up feeling great.
Try Doan's pills for relief of nagging backache.
Former Vice President Spiro Agnew has finished writing what is surely the most important speech of his life. He has asked the television networks for time this evening, and he will appear at 7:30 Eastern Daylight Time. A clue to the line Agnew will follow may be found in an interview he has given to the Nashville, Tennessee Banner. In it, Agnew says he was not guilty of any wrongdoing, that he didn't cheat on his income tax, and that he was forced to resign because of pressures at the highest levels of the Nixon administration. Here's more on the Agnew story from Ron Nesson in Washington.
Mr. Agnew wrote the speech himself with little or no help from advisors. In fact, his staff barely saw him today. He arrived early at his office in the Executive Office Building and worked alone most of the day on the speech. It was learned that Mr. Agnew will stick to the position he has taken from the beginning, that he is not guilty of a widespread scheme to collect payoffs from contractors. He is expected to claim that a jury would have found him innocent.
It's believed that Mr. Agnew will explain his resignation as a gesture for the good of the country, to spare the country a long and bitter period of uncertainty during a trial. Ron Nesson, NBC News, Washington.
Congressman Gerald Ford, chosen by President Nixon to replace Agnew, will appear before the Senate Rules Committee to be the first witness in his confirmation hearings. Under the law, both houses of Congress must approve the nomination by a simple majority. And from what most members of Congress were saying today, nothing seems to stand in the way of Ford's confirmation. Supreme Court Justice William O. Douglas told a strange story today. He said he is morally certain that the Supreme Court's conference room has been bugged, that electronic surveillance in the District of Columbia is commonplace, and that the late President, Lyndon Johnson, believed his own phone was tapped. Douglas said Johnson told him that during his term as president. Governor Francis Sargent of Massachusetts today asked President Nixon to declare the city of Chelsea, Massachusetts, a disaster area. Chelsea is a city of 30,000 people just north of Boston. Yesterday, a big fire, whipped by the wind, destroyed a good part of it. Betty Rolland reports.
Yesterday, 1/4 of an entire city burned. Today, it looked like this. Through the haze, one could see the remains of 1,000 buildings, mostly wooden tenements and warehouses. The fire began in an abandoned building Sunday afternoon. Winds blowing more than 40 miles an hour turned the blaze into what looked like a flaming tornado. Hundred firemen from all over Massachusetts and from Rhode Island and New Hampshire worked through the night. Incredibly, no one, neither the firemen nor any of the 1,000 residents, died or were even seriously injured. The mayor of Chelsea said what helped was that the fire began in daylight. If this had started at 3 or 4 in the morning, he added, God only knows what would have happened. Betty Rolland, NBC News.
In Washington today, the Cost of Living Council approved another increase in retail gasoline prices to reflect higher wholesale costs. That's the second increase in less than 3 weeks, and it probably will amount to 1 or 2 cents more a gallon. The council also approved increases in diesel and home heating fuel costs. All these are effective immediately.
I will not cough. I will not.
When you've got a cough from a cold and you can't suppress it yourself, you need a strong cough medicine. Vicks Formula 44. Formula 44 can help suppress the hacking cough you can't suppress. You can't buy a more powerful cough suppressant than the one in Formula 44, yet it's not narcotic. Formula 44 can help suppress the cough you can't suppress. And now for coughs that come with stuffed-up noses, something new from Vicks.
My baby's got a nasty cough and a stuffed-up nose, poor baby. Here's Vicks new Formula 44D, a strong cough suppressant plus a decongestant. Helps calm your cough and unclog your nose so you can breathe easier. You're going to be all right, baby.
Thailand's former Prime Minister Thanom Kittikachorn left the country today, one day after rioting students forced him to resign and end 2 years of military dictatorship. Sanya Tamasak, a civilian educator, has been named the new premier. State Department officials say they don't expect any change in Thailand's foreign policy. Thailand is a close ally of the United States, and there are nearly 40,000 U.S. servicemen there. Phil Brady reports from Bangkok on how and why the government was toppled.
The trouble began last weekend when thousands of students poured into the streets. They demanded that the government release 13 student leaders arrested earlier for subversion. a charge most here feel was absurd. The government, headed by Field Marshal Tanom Kittakachorin and his deputy, Field Marshal Prapat, gave way and let the leaders go. But the students didn't stop there. They then demanded that the government speed up the publishing of a new constitution. Then, suddenly, the shooting started. The killing shocked the people here, and many joined the students in the streets. Field Marshal Kittakachorin then resigned as prime minister, and a close advisor of the king, a civilian educator, was sworn in. Most of the fighting took place here, around the foot of Thailand's monument to democracy. The battle was no skirmish. It was a war, and the debris scattered around the streets told just part of the story. Eyewitnesses filled in the rest. They said army troops, police, and even Thai special forces units moved in and with no warning began to cut down unarmed students with machine guns and rifles. No one knows how many have died, but it appears hundreds were killed. Several thousand more were said to be wounded. Phil Brady, NBC News in Bangkok.
The stock markets opened the week badly today. Trading was moderate and prices dropped sharply. The Dow Jones Industrials were off 11.5 points. On the New York Exchange, the average price of a share decreased 48 cents. On the American Exchange, the average price of a share fell 6 cents.
Have you ever wished for one product that would clean and shine almost everything in your house? Here it is, Clean and Shine. Like magic, Clean and Shine leaves a nice shine on fine wood furniture, so you don't need furniture polish. It cleans and shines mirrors, so you don't need glass cleaner for mirrors. It cleans and shines refrigerators, like this kitchen product, even countertops, tile, and vinyl. Try Clean and Shine, the foam that cleans and shines almost everything in your house.
Rainwater. It made everything soft because it washed in softness. Today, you can wash in softness with new improved Rain Barrel, the fabric softener that works in the wash cycle. Detergents wash out the dirt. Rain Barrel washes in the softness. A deep down softness and freshness that's not rinsed in, but washed in. New improved Rain Barrel washes in softness.
Finally tonight, we've got some unusual material to show you concerning UFOs, unidentified flying objects. There has been a rash of sightings recently in the southern part of the United States, and a lot of sober and experienced observers, including policemen and forest rangers, have seen strange lights flying across the sky. And over the weekend, one of these lights was spotted over Ohio, near Dayton. A television cameraman named John Getter got film of the sighting, and here it is. Getter works for WKEF-TV in Dayton and is an experienced man. This is what he saw. The object, he says, was moving away from him, and he estimates it was about a mile away. He tried to zoom in to get a closer look at whatever it was or is. Getter says the object made a sound like a rope twirling in the air, and that's all we know. And if you think that's strange, how about this? Two men near Pascagoula, Mississippi, said last week that some sort of spaceship landed near them out in the country and that they were taken aboard and photographed. Their story, believe it or not, and many will not believe it, has stood up under various tests. Our correspondent, Kenley Jones, has talked to the two men who were quite shaken by the experience, and here is his report.
This is where it happened, whatever it was. Two men fishing from a pier on the Pascagoula River shortly after dark. Suddenly, they said, a bluish glowing spacecraft hovered over the bank behind them. Three strange-looking creatures came out, took them aboard, examined them but did not harm them, then let them go. The two men are 42-year-old Charles Hickson and 18-year-old Calvin Parker.
About the time that I seen it seemed to just stop, just land. And all of a sudden, one end of it just opened up, and just suddenly, just like that, they was whatever it was right on us, and two of them reached for my arms, one on each side, and immediately just lifted me off the ground about the height that it was or they was, and we went into, they carried me into the vehicle or the craft or whatever you want to call it.
There was kind of like a humming noise. Just one of them made it, like hum, just like that. And the only one I seen that made it, just the one that made it. The rest of them I didn't hear nothing. Another face or nothing. I couldn't see, distinctly because I was at the point where I passed out.
I don't remember seeing any eyes, to the best I can remember. They had something in about the center of what I would call the face, just something that came straight out, more or less about where a nose on a human being's face would be, and there seemed to be an opening directly under it and across, but I didn't see that opening move. I didn't see any neck. It looked like it just sit down on a body, if you call it a body. And they had arms, and they didn't have hands as we have. They had more or less like pinchers or claws or something like that. And the one thing that I will remember, that I remember real good, that the feet, they had, if you call it feet, there wasn't any toes at all. It was more or less just a round-like thing on a leg, if you call it a leg.
Dr. James Harder is a professor of engineering at the University of California and is a consultant to the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization.
What has been shown so far, to my satisfaction, is that the experience that they underwent was indeed a real one, and the fact that there were two people who underwent it is fairly good evidence that it was not a hallucination.
Neither Hickson nor Parker figured anybody would believe their story, but Hickson said it had to be told even if people laughed him out of the county. At first it was treated as a big joke, but no one who has talked to the two men, who has listened to them tell their story firsthand, and who has considered its implications, is laughing now. Kinley Jones, NBC News, Pascagoula, Mississippi.
A lot of strange things have gone on in Mississippi after dark, but that story certainly ranks as one of the strangest. Is it true? You be the judge. We don't know. Good night for NBC News.
Dr. J.H. Robinson of Creston, Iowa, used to drive a Toyota. Then he traded it in, not for another Toyota, but for a Subaru GL Coupe. He wrote to say,
"On our first tank of gas, we got 30 miles to the gallon. We've had other import cars, but Subaru is by far the best. This is truly a great car."
Every day, more and more people trade for a Subaru.
Pepto-Bismol presents Famous Last Brags.
They don't make no mustard too hot for me. I got a cast iron stomach.
Me? Get diarrhea? Never.
Pile it on, Ma. I could eat a horse. I had 4 hot pepper heroes and a cupcake on a 5-minute coffee break.
Upset stomach? Pepto-Bismol coats and soothes. Comes between the upset and the stomach.
Oh, that's better. It must have been the cupcake.
What is tomorrow? Tomorrow is a talk program about all the things in your life that are important to you. We'll make waves with big names on big topics. And we begin Monday, October 15th. Join me, Tom Snyder, at 1 a.m., midnight Central Time, here on NBC.
You're watching Channel 4 WSM-TV in Nashville.
The brewers of Fall City Beer have asked me to say a few words about City.
Fall City.
Fall City is a true premium brew. City belongs with all the good times. Was this supposed to happen?
Fall City.
Ain't it great? People who depend on their trucks depend on Jim Reed Chevrolet.
We do a lot of commercial work. We have to be off the road in the mud holes and fields and all that. And you load the trucks pretty heavy with